All right, welcome to the party, pals. So today we have a special meeting here. So we're starting out with the ISO Beginner's Guide for the 27001 with Chris over here. I'm going to go ahead and do the introduction real quick. We'll go through this introduction and then we'll move over to his presentation. Definitely drop your questions and so forth in chat, especially during such. We'll do our best to keep track of that. And then there will also be like a Q&A where towards the end there we'll drop the link for everybody if you want to come up on stage and ask your questions directly, or we may pull throughout or otherwise too. Definitely drop everything in chat though. So we did start going through and doing like different segments just for like a rough outline to kind of keep us on track because we were, kind of all over the place for the meetings. And so typically we'll have like our presentation and then like the weekly topic review, a group activity, and then open discussions. This is just something very loose for us to just kind of have some type of direction for. And then just a little bit of the guidelines here and to let everybody know. So this is a business casual meeting. The meeting is recorded and live streamed. Especially if you do come up on stage, definitely feel comfortable to come up on the stage when we drop the link for that. You could turn on your mic, turn on your video. Even if it doesn't pertain to what we're talking about at the time, you could still drop questions and so forth. I'll drop the link for the Discord here shortly. That's a really good resource to have. Also, you can share your personal LinkedIn. So if you come up on stage, you could drop that in chat, or you can also go into our Discord and drop that in our live chat there, and I'll relay through the channels. The whole big thing here is just to help each other out. So also sharing useful resources and so forth too. This is a whole community thing. Don't share anything that you don't want to be public. If you do happen to share something that you don't want to be out there in the open internet, just reach out to me on LinkedIn or Discord, or you can also contact me at the email there for contact@studygrc.org. And if you guys have any questions, definitely let me know. And you can go to our website here, so studygrc.org. The website did change a little bit recently. It's a little bit more straightforward, actually. But our socials are on there. So if you want to join the Discord, YouTube, LinkedIn, we're also streaming to X now, and we'll be adding on. We were looking at like Twitch and one other one. And then with that said, I'm going to go ahead and transition over. Let's see. All right, and welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. Awesome to be here and great to get to finally join in on one of these sessions live. I usually kind of lurk in the chat room, but just to get us started, thank you all so much for joining my talk today. My name is Chris Hidalgo, and this is my ISO 27001, A Beginner's Guide. So, quick introduction slide. Really, who am I? I'm going on 4 years in the GRC space. I've gotten my Sec Plus, CISA, and I'm currently pending my experience requirement for that ISO 27001 lead auditor. I actually started in GRC software, transitioned into an IT auditor role, working with like banks and other financial institutions. And I had quite a bit of experience in like NIST and CIS. I now work as a GRC analyst, specifically working in ISO 27001 and its supporting standards. So why this talk? The reviews are mixed. Anyone here know who Dr. Gerald Osher is? I'm sure we all do. It kills me to see this Discord post. I know it's about 2 years old now. I asked him for permission to see this, or to share this as part of my presentation, but kills me to see ISO is hot trash. They're not keeping up with current trends in the information security space. And it's like, I get it. He might be 2 drinks in. He says he's a little saucy here, but I get it. ISO seems to be a little bit behind the curve on there. I do want to kind of dispel a lot of that feeling. So I took his spicy take here as the driving force for this talk. I get it. NIST, CSF, CIS, they're awesome control frameworks, but you can't get certified in them. So that's really where the ISO 27001 has that distinct advantage in being a certification in itself, but then also preparing your security program for other stringent audits like a SOC 2. Reality is audits and maintaining your security program are expensive. you might as well have a certification to show for it. So also why this talk, the cost of learning those standards. So Chris actually reached out to me about developing some documents or resources because there is, a demand for people to figure out how to learn these standards or purchase them, acquire them by some means. I really will go into not recommending that later on, but it was designed for the Simply Cyber and Study GRC Discord communities to give free legal resources for ISO 27001. I do want to say, even if you do require these in some way, you still need additional resources to understand how to implement those controls and audit. So another caveat to that is ISO 27001 implementation becomes bespoke to your organization. So really it's going to be completely custom to your specific compliance needs and business processes. Our agenda for today, I wanted to give an overview of the ISO 27001 and 27002 document standards. We're going to be looking over some of those job roles that are just like pre-baked in for GRC professionals or more on the defensive side of things. So we'll also cover how that information security management system or ISMS is structured. You will see I will use that acronym throughout the talk. So forgive me if I just say ISMS repeatedly. It's much easier and rolls off the tongue that way. We'll be talking about how the ISMS is implemented and certified. I'll be giving you all some resources on skilling up in ISO 27001. And then I wanted to wrap up with communities to further your ISO 27001 knowledge and be able to actively contribute to. So some quick ISO 27001 definitions. We have that information security management system, that ISMS. It really is just your security program. Just like those other frameworks that we've seen with NIST, they call it a management system because ISO has multiple standards spanning across anything that they deem as a management system. You'll have a quality management system, you'll have a AI management system, or a privacy information management system. So they coined that term management system. It's really a security program. Annex A, so this is a list of controls. It's really like a catalog at the end of that standard. There's going to be some guidance recommendations, and we'll go into a little bit more depth on that. I really like to think of it as that 853 for ISO. It's a full list of controls. You may or may not implement them into your specific organization. Statement of applicability. So this is actually going to be that formal list of all those Annex A controls, and your organization is going to document whether they are included or excluded, and then provide full justification and support for whatever decision you've made. So think of it as kind of like building your organization profile if you're coming from like the NIST CSF side of the house. Just kind of, it's your bespoke scope of controls. TLDR of the ISO 27001 and 27002. That 27001 document is really those shall requirements. So these are absolutely, you must have these to establish your ISMS and get certified as an ISO 27001 compliance system. It's going to formally establish those functions, and we'll see later on that like GRC analyst roles are pre-baked into these functions. So there's a lot of opportunity for like job security in a lot of ways, whether you're in the internal audit space like me, or if you're leaning more towards the risk route. These are absolute requirements that you have to keep the system functioning. And yes, plenty of work to keep you busy. ISO 27002, these are going to be those should guidance statements. So I know a lot of people joke like, oh, you can ignore those. Not quite. This is going to be covering all those Annex A controls that we saw like at the end of 27001, but then in more detail on how to implement it, some of the best practices regarding those controls. And you don't have to use the ISO 27002 guidance specifically. You're allowed to use really any control framework as long as you're justifying how they're meeting those 27001 requirements. Quick warning here. So regardless of what control framework you use for your statement of applicability, you have to document these controls and how they're implemented. So like from policy to procedure, you have to show every step along the way how they're documented and reviewed against the standard. So how is an ISMS structured? I pulled this list from Advisoro, which is one of my main resources for free ISO 27001 content. I could rattle off these main lists. So these are called clauses within the standard, and there you go from clause 4 through 10. Instead of rattling off these and kind of going through a list, I'm going to save that for another talk or for a resource I have planned later on. I wanted to show y'all how these really like interfix within your program and just kind of like the support structure of how those connect. So I've developed this diagram. Looks pretty similar, hopefully, to other things y'all have seen. This is how I've mapped out how an ISMS is generally structured. So let's start from the top. You'll have your risk assessment. So you're evaluating the risks unique to your organization, how you plan on treating those risks, how you're wanting to apply your controls. So then you tick to the clockwise, you're performing your risk processes. So really, after you've applied your controls, it's business as usual. So these are your business processes working as intended. As you move along, you're going to be continuously monitoring those processes. And that's where like internal auditors like me come in. We're making sure that we aren't failing our own requirements, our own procedures, making sure that we are like sticking to exactly how we state we do things. From there, you move to nonconformity and corrective action. So when things go sideways, either through internal audit or through, say, incidents or any other kind of things that fall off your standards, that's where that nonconformity is identified. And then you'll proceed with corrective action. So you'll have this cycle here, just constantly turning. And then you start over. You reassess current risks. You apply new controls or enhance your controls, monitor, correct. On the outside of that layer, I wanted to cover some things that are just enforcing this process to keep going. So at the risk assessment level, you're going to have that leadership role. You're going to have your CISO up there. You're going to have your risk management, your executive leadership. They're going to be setting that tone at the top. You'll have your general risks to your organization. You'll have, say, like compliance requirements out there. You'll have your overall objectives as a business, and then your supporting roles. So you'll have your CISO, you'll have your risk analysts, you'll have qualified personnel needed to manage your information security management system. On the business risk or the like business process side, you'll have that operational planning. So planning how these processes are put in place and how they're controlled. A little bit of duplicate here. You'll continue to have that monitoring and measurement and internal audit function, but I wanted to add this management review. So as you're identifying these nonconformities or like process failures, there needs to be a path to escalate those up to management, and then that they are kept in tune to what is failing and how to go about correcting it. And then overlaying on that nonconformity and corrective action, you'll have continuous improvement. So continual improvement is one of the pillars of an ISMS. You're in this state constantly improving along the way and enhancing your program. So a little on the nose here. Does this look familiar to anyone? I purposely made this to mirror that NIST cybersecurity framework 2.0, just to draw that connection saying like, hey, if you have experience in NIST, it also applies to ISO here. One thing that I wanted to note here is, although NIST CSF has gotten praise for explicitly stating like governance requirements in the 2.0 framework, NIST has been doing this like the last decade. So, I mean, take that what you will. It's really not a NIST versus ISO 27001. It's just, there's a lot more similar there than there are differences. One example I wanted to show you is just kind of a live example of information ISMS in a modern company. I know it kind of is considered like it's outdated or it's controls, and it's like GitLab is really, I feel, on the forefront of a lot of kind of modern practices, and they include a lot of their documentation just openly available. So if you wanted to see how an ISMS looks like in the wild, you can hop in and view their handbook to an extent without logging in, but you can review just kind of how they've structured it. It's a great case study if you wanted to look at, this is how I would plan out an ISMS, or this is how I would approach auditing an ISMS. So you'll be able to kind of trace along their steps there. One of my colleagues actually mentioned that in the spirit of openness, they actually triaged an incident live on Twitch. So GitLab is all about transparency when it comes to their security program. How does an ISMS get audited and certified? So I have this diagram here. We'll just walk through it clockwise. So you'll have that stage 1, and this is when you initially engage with an auditing firm. It's really a document review side of things. So you'll be reviewing your ISMS documentation to make sure that you are meeting those core clause requirements. Then probably within 6 months to a year after that, you'll be going through your stage 2, and you'll be resolving kind of any previous findings that you had with your documentation failures and all of the controls that are in scope for your statement of applicability. So after you've completed stage 1 and 2 successfully, you will be officially certified with an ISO 27001 certificate. After that, you move into the surveillance phase. So these are kind of like maintenance audits on an annual basis. They'll be ongoing. They'll be a little bit smaller in scope. They'll be kind of like a group of controls of your statement of applicability while also covering all of those core clause requirements again. So you'll go through your 2 there, you'll have your findings, you'll resolve them, you'll keep plugging along, and then you make it to recertification, which is after your 3-year cycle, you'll do a full comprehensive review of, it's almost a stage 2 again, and then you continue that cycle through. I wanted to provide this because there's a lot of opportunities here. If you are applying for companies that you know require ISO 27001 experience, or maybe planning to pursue certification, it's good to know where they land in this cycle. It's a great interview question. When I was applying for my current position, I asked them this question, and then I was like, okay, we just completed stage 1. We have stage 2 in like a few months' time. I need to start focusing on controls. How do I deliver as much value when it comes to controls, like mock audits? Like, how do I prepare our teams for that stage 2? So kind of seeing where you land, it gives you an advantage when it comes to applying for those. Getting into the resources side, we have Skilling Up in ISO 27001. I've talked a lot about Advisora. They continue to surprise me with how much free content that they have on ISO 27001 that just requires a login. So they have a lot of free training. Lead auditor, lead implementer. I've actually been looking at their transition training as well. So like transitioning from the 2013 version to the 2022, all of these are free, but that exam and certification are going to cost you. That knowledge there is free. And one of my role models was Neil Bridges, and he always said, like, do the free things first. Do all the free content first. So it applies here too in GRC. I did use that article, just walking through that straightforward guide. I wanted to include that link here. The Secure Controls Framework, I wanted to give that a highlight here because it is a open source framework of control mappings from like ISO 27001 and 27002, mapped to NIST, mapped to CIS, mapped to a secure control that they've developed. It's a great way to see how those interconnect. That way, if you came from one background, transitioning into ISO 27001, you're able to kind of relay that. Also, a lot of GRC SaaS tools use this framework because it is open source as like the bedrock of how their product works. So if you know this, you can easily ramp up on whatever solution your company currently has implemented. Per Lego, this is probably the most valuable subscription that I have. It's an ebook library. It's full of 2013 books, but now those 2022 books are coming in. Yeah, I can't say enough great things about it. There's always new books being added. Their security books are easy to download, keep on multiple devices. I've used this for studying for multiple certifications, or lately I've been getting into like CISSP books just to kind of see how the management side works. It's awesome. Yeah, there's so many books on that platform. I also wanted to include that link there to the ISMS manual that we covered with GitLab. So all that leading up to, I definitely wanted to present something I've been working on with Chris Whitlock, is the ISO 27001 reference guide. I've included a QR code here. It's a publicly available document, and it combines all of the resources I've found and put together in one document. So this is all the books that I've referenced. These are the websites I've referenced. It gives kind of a like open breakdown of kind of those core clause requirements that I didn't go into as much detail before. But the whole goal here is to have something that can legally provide like free resources just by associating multiple free publicly available and compiling them together. I came from a library science background, so librarians in a particular subject area would develop a reference page. So this is what I was really hoping to gain with this area. And really, the ultimate goal is to collaborate on this document even further and kind of break down those sections into new study groups. Like, say, we cover the Annex A control domains using free materials, or we start preparing internal audit documents, audit plans, all built on kind of like that free content that's out there. I do want to keep this as a collaborative effort, so I dropped the link here, but this will be actively worked on in the study GRC group. And I wanted to make sure that that group was kind of like being able to collaborate and produce changes to this guide and continue to enhance it. So as a recap, we covered an overview of those 27001 and 27002 document standards. We talked about some of those job roles that are in there, like the CISO roles, your risk analyst roles. I focused a little bit more on the internal audit side because that's where I live and breathe. We saw how an ISMS is structured, how it's implemented and certified, and then I wrapped up with those resources for scaling up in your ISO 27001 knowledge. Towards the end, I wanted to give kudos to communities that made this talk happen. So within Simply Cyber's Discord, I helped co-found the Public Speaking Masters group, and we meet the last Tuesday of every month, and it's awesome to see some of the members here in the chat today. Really, we're wanting to cultivate that supportive platform for preparing and presenting content, getting some of that feedback, and just building overall speaking confidence. This group has heard me give this talk maybe 3 to 4 times at this point, and they still keep cheering me on. It's been an awesome experience overall. And then I also wanted to promote here the Study GRC group. Awesome to be here. I wanted to make sure that kudos were given to these groups that really inspired this talk and continue to help me develop content regarding ISO 27001. If you want to connect with me, I'm active on LinkedIn, especially for just like GRC, information security things, and Discord. I'm in the Simply Cyber community. I'm in Study GRC. Feel free to message me, send me a friend request. I'd be happy to chat about kind of my experience and how I've been able to get started in keeping current in the industry. So I wanted to open this up for questions. I'll be kind of glancing over at the chat here. And then Chris, however you want to kind of moderate these or go about it is great. Otherwise, I can kind of self-moderate. But thank you all so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was a really big deep dive right there, to be honest with you. I personally had a couple questions. I'm going to go ahead and drop the link for everybody. So I did drop the link to the document and also his LinkedIn page if you guys wanted to go through and click on those. And then I'm going to drop the link if you guys want to come up on stage. So we definitely want everybody to feel comfortable to come up here on stage. You don't have to turn on your video if you don't want to, but it gives you the opportunity to talk with us directly and ask questions, a little bit better than just over text. Yeah. And then let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and pull this up. But yeah, definitely drop any of the different questions. So one of the things I was curious about is, does ISO actually call it the surveillance stage?
Yes. So working with like external auditors, they will call it a surveillance audit. Yep.
Okay, I just thought that was an odd, a different term because it sounded like that was like a monitoring stage.
Yeah, it almost sounds like probationary, like, oh, you're being surveillanced, but it's really just a check-in, making sure that you're still upholding to your standards, and then it's just kind of like spot checks. Spot checks as far as like control scope, but they do that deeper dive because they have like maybe 3 audit days to like really dig into those controls. So that's what they kind of focus on. They're a little bit more laser focused on that, as opposed to, oh, you have policies in place, you have standards in place. This is like, I need to see that specific page on Amazon, GitLab, like however your organization does their business. So they're stressful.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of some interesting terminology, and that's one of the things that I've also heard about ISO is that, um, it's so popular nowadays, but they have their own. It's just like every single framework; they use their own terminology. They have their own processes that they want to call things and so forth. So I think that's one of the things that confuses people, especially somebody like myself who I haven't really studied ISO.
Yeah.
And so looking at NIST and then moving over to ISO, like the concepts are the same, it seems, but they call it different things.
Yeah, and they really have kind of an audit culture about it. A lot of their audit practices are built off of ISO 9001. I can pull that up later, but just like generalized standards on auditing. So yeah, they have this whole kind of ecosystem of the standards they hold, certifying bodies like external audit teams, and like the terminology that they share when it comes to audits. So pretty wild.
Did you have anything else in particular to add, Rania?
No, not specific. I know Space Tacos asked about how common ISO is in the US since it is an international standard.
Okay.
Someone had answered, but maybe you have something else to add.
Yeah. That is actually what I hear pretty often, because they were like, okay, does this apply to me because I'm not based out of Europe or things like that? It is universal. If you did a look at like a external auditor, like let's choose Shellman because I like to pick on them. They're pretty well known in the ISO space. But if you look at their registry, you'll see a lot of names there, like a lot of clients that are US based. You'll be able to kind of see through their registry who they've certified on it. It's pretty wild to think about how many places have an ISO 27001 like certified ISMS. Examples that come to mind that were new to me was if you're in the kind of library space of EBSCO or Lexis, like EBSCO owns like databases, academic articles. They have an ISMS. They have a really broad ISMS. I'm pretty sure Amazon, GitHub, like you could just kind of throw a dart at the wall and see a lot of these ISO 27001 certified companies.
Yeah, and along those lines too, how did you get pulled into the whole ISO thing? Because like you said, you're like a lead auditor and you've been dealing with it for a while now. How did you get drawn into that?
Yeah.
A lot of people are seeing that in the market.
Okay. So with my going back to my previous experience as an IT auditor working in financial institutions, I wanted to make the shift to a GRC analyst working internally because I enjoyed doing like audit engagements, but it was like you do your audit and then you move on to the next client and then you move on to the next client. And I really felt like I was leaning more into the consultant role, like wanting to actively work in a program and do internal audit work. So that was kind of the driving force for me. It just so happened the company that I'm working with now was in the process of getting certified in ISO 27001. So that was like, I guess I'm learning that as quickly as possible. So it's more of kind of like you stumble into it or you fall into an established program with whatever org you're working in.
See, yeah, and then also Flakinator, if you wanted to come up, I think you would have some valuable input to it too. So he mentioned a couple things in regards to like utilizing the CSF and ISO, which I believe Aaron Lounge, you're probably more familiar with it than I am, but I believe Aaron's discussed that before on why that works well together.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Could you repeat that question?
Oh yeah, not a problem.
Okay.
So what I was saying is so like I have this other question up on the screen, but so Flakinator mentioned earlier that the NIST CSF and ISO work really well together. I believe I've seen that from like Aaron Lounge. And so, yeah, I don't recall the article directly. I was looking for it, but I remember coming across it before.
Yeah. At the end of the old NIST CSF document, they used to have a reference list referring to ISO 27001 and 27002 controls. It's been a while since I've looked at the 2.0 version, but that's kind of faded away. So there's always been kind of like a light connection between the control frameworks. Yeah, and I feel like that still is true today, especially if you're wanting to meet that governance ring that we talked a little bit about, because ISO is all about making sure that the management processes are in place to ensure that your program is functioning as intended. But yeah, they still interconnect, and you can borrow controls out of NIST. Like an example, depending on who you're working with coming from a NIST background, they may say like, I would prefer to kind of take the NIST route when it comes to like access control. And it's like, okay, that's great. Let's just make sure that we document it and show, hey, this is our chosen control implementation based on NIST guidance. So yeah, there's a lot of flexibility in how you pick and choose those.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing to throw out there too, because also like I've talked to like some of the different people for like government contractors, for an example, and they're like, oh, well, we got to run NIST. We got to do the 171 or something like that. And so having that flexibility is actually really valuable. Because I mean, looking at it from the outside, especially without much knowledge on it, it's really kind of confusing why so many companies are using ISO. But like you were saying, is a large portion of that seems to be like the governance standpoint.
Right. And having that certification, I can't speak for every company, but like usually when I've worked in like third-party risk management and have reached out to companies to engage with, like saying like, hey, we need to evaluate your security posture. They're like, well, our trust page has our ISO 27001 certificate. You can take that. We're probably not going to answer this questionnaire. So sometimes companies will like use that as, hey, we've been certified by a third party. This is our attestation that we're meeting the controls or have a vetted security program. So there is that little bit of like, from a marketing perspective, you're able to kind of cut out a lot of security questionnaire follow-up, things like that. Or like SOC 2 is also kind of one of those high standards of what people request for or look for when they're vetting certain vendors. So it really kind of depends if like you're a business to business type service or like having a product that you're wanting to show is ISO 27001 certified.
Yeah, I think we don't actually talk about ISO around here very often, to be honest with you. However, I think that's really good insight too, because like just putting it into a different light, I think is very important. There's a lot of US companies that are still calling for people to be ISO, and I hear a lot of different people, including myself, like, why? Like, NIST is free, why not do that? And so you're providing some great insights on why they would do that in the first place. And like what you were just saying there is like, that made me think about like a SOC 2, for an example. You know, that just, that gets the check marks done. You know, so that way it's just quicker and easier later on down the road for business agreements and just moving things along.
Yeah.
Which makes that a lot more understandable, especially like I've seen it most common for like data centers. And so having that ISO accreditation. And would it be considered an accreditation?
I believe so. If we were wanting to like kind of give it that name, there is like a accrediting body. So yeah, it would be like an accreditation or certifying body. So that's also a good point too, Chris, on that. Like, so ISO 27001 audits are like a point in time audit, at least in the experience that I've had in audits. So preparing you for like the long term for SOC 2, where they look at much larger samples over time, it's like you're making sure that you have it as a standardized process in those samples. That way you are much more likely to not have exceptions or findings in your SOC 2. So
yeah, and then if anybody else has any other questions or otherwise, Let's see. So we're about 40 minutes in, or we're coming up to the 40-minute mark now. Oh, and thank you about the hat portion. So that's actually thanks to Zach Hill from Anti-Siphon.
Yeah, they just sold out on those shirts, and I've been wanting a Run GRC like merch for a long time now.
Yeah, that was the first thing oh yeah. As soon as that came up, I was like, bam. Yeah, you know, like the GIF where it's like tapping the credit card.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
Take my money.
Yeah, exactly. Just take it, especially with Anti-Siphon, Black Hills. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's been a great experience. And then you're going to be in the Besides Austin this next month, right?
Yes. Yep. Actually giving the same talk. It got accepted for B-Sides Austin. Thankfully, my wife is really great at presentations, and she's helping me revamp that to get it up to another polished level. So constantly improving, continuous improvement. So
I actually haven't checked. I was looking at attending in person. You would be a big reason why I would actually go in person, but
thank you.
I don't even know if they have virtual, do they?
It is December
5th
and 6th. Yeah.
I'm in San Antonio. I thought about going, but
oh yeah,
I don't have enough time off.
Yeah, that's the tough part. And there's if you're definitely interested in AI and AI governance, there's like 20 talks regarding AI during that. So
yes.
It's pretty incredible. So
I don't know if I want to hear more about AI right
now.
Yeah. But yeah, something I noticed with like the B-Sides in Charleston, which was the only one I've gone to so far, is like it's just so welcoming. Like so many different people. I was really surprised with some of the different cons, and it's going a little off topic, but you know, like the talks may be, 20 of them about AI, but then also all the connections that you make and so forth is just really, really good that I've seen from the different cons so far.
Yeah, and the hallway con is always really good in B-Sides. So just all the chats and discussions. Yeah. So yeah,
I wish you guys have all kinds of stuff down there in Texas. There's not very much up here in North Dakota at all. But if nobody else has any other questions here, then I'll at least give them the okay to go if you wanted to. So I don't want to keep you too long here. I don't know what your schedule's like.
Oh yeah,
I was gonna.
I'm
go ahead.
Open this evening. Perfect. Yeah.
Oh, we got him the whole time. So now what we could do is we could go through his resource sheet and pick it apart.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy for any feedback here, definitely, because I don't want to make that in a vacuum for sure. And I appreciate just positive feedback, ways we can improve it. I know I kind of at least got that ugly first draft on there first. So.
Oh, I think you did a really good job there. And then especially that sheet. I mean, that is going above and beyond. And then Fredon, I am responding to you right now. And so that is the exact address for that conference.
Yeah. Thank you, Flakinator. I appreciate it. And thank you all as well. I finally got my my restream working so I can catch up on like previous comments. So thank you.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, and if you wanted to, you could also still pull it up on the YouTube end. Restream is kind of fancy, I would say, but it does make it a little easier once you like. It's definitely a learning curve. Yeah, let's see. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share the screen here, and I'm going to pull up this document that he has, and I think it's the same one that you sent me before, right?
Right.
Okay, perfect. Does Google Docs have a dark mode?
That's a good question. I set everything that I make into dark mode, just manually. Like my presentation was in dark mode, but
that's all right. I'm gonna go ahead and transfer it over to a doc real quick for Word.
I did see a quick question from Abai, and thank you so much for making it for the talk, Abai. For the ISMS and ISO 27001, ISO 27001 established the ISMS criteria but yeah, you could say that they were made at the same time. There's also like a quality management system for oddly enough, when I was visiting one of our company branches in Bangalore, India, they had like a quality management system at a Calvary store, and we took a picture of it. I was like, "Are you going to an ISO certified store when you shop?" So they have standards across the board for like lab equipment, and then ISO 27001 was the information security based standard that kicked it off. So,
and then let's see. Yeah, I'm just gonna pull it up over here. I figured that would be a really good portion to go through. And then I'm going to drop the link again. I dropped it a second ago, but again, I want everybody to feel comfortable coming up on stage if you'd like. Oh, welcome to the party, pal, Kimberly. Kimberly Can Fix It is in here now.
Awesome.
So there's also this question here too.
Okay. Key soft skills. I would definitely say communication skills and planning. This is something that I continue to work on. So when you reach out to people about ISO 27001, you really have that like social capital. And it's really important to come to them in terms that they can understand. Otherwise you will quickly like exhaust people. Like, I don't really know what you're talking about. What does the standard say? So kind of having like crisp things that you request of others on your team and in your company, that kind of just emotional intelligence to know like, hey, I need to translate this in terms that they understand or things that they work every day with. So just overall kind of that like empathy as you approach it, I find has been the biggest point. And then finding ways to connect with your coworkers or teams that you work with, because it's like developers might be less social. If you can find like, oh, we have similar interests, or like I joined the 3D printing chat in my current company, and that like made everyone just kind of like open up and start talking to me a whole lot more. So just kind of like establish like that commonality with developers, or depending on how your business functions, like different departments.
I think that's a massive part of GRC in the first place. Like,
yeah,
being able to develop those relationships. I think a large portion of most of the positions are going to require you to have those soft skills. You know, and that's something it's a skill. That's something that surprised me coming into it.
Yeah, absolutely. The amount of just like talking to people that you've never met before, or establishing kind of like that initial email or that meeting request, is so important when it comes to GRC work.
All right, I think I have this up. And all right, let's see. So yeah, if you guys have any other questions, then definitely drop those in chat. There's also this one from Space Tacos, it looks like. So for your auditing duties, what kind of software did you use? Or did you only use MS Excel?
Okay, so we were stuck in Excel when I first started. And coming from my GRC software background, there's a company based in West Texas called Tandem and Kinetrix. I knew GRC software. I was like, we've got to get out of spreadsheets, out of Word documents. So we actually fell on Zen GRC, which of the many companies that are out there, it took some vetting on kind of like what we were looking at for ISO 27001 specifically. It's pretty wild looking at some of the pricing for certain vendors, because like you'll drive down the highway and you'll see a Vanta poster or a billboard, and it's like, if they can afford a billboard, they might be out of your price range. But I actually saw one when I was visiting in Austin at one point, and I was like, oh gosh, that explains a whole lot. So I can't speak for any specific vendors, but I have looked into the CISO assistant, and I've seen some questions in there. It would be awesome to have future sessions in there and kind of see how I haven't deep dived in it, but I got it set up in Docker. But like open source ones would be a great way to get your feet wet. So
yeah, and that was one of the ones that I was going to circle back to as well. Let me see. So I think it was Laro. Yeah, so Laro2745 was asking about succeeding in getting a CISO assistant set up. What I would recommend with that is to join our Discord, and then it's way easier to assist you in the Discord, like over instant messaging, or we could do like screen sharing and so forth to help each other out with that. That's one of the benefits with community. Yeah, one of the key things, like one reason why we did that presentation with CISO Assistant is because it does have that open source ability. Because like a lot of the tools, they all do the same thing. That's really what it comes down to. No matter which company you go with, they're most likely going to use a different tool set or something like that. Like, but what they actually function, the actual task that they do, is very, very similar. And so having that ability, especially from an educational standpoint, for free, is just amazing. That's a huge benefit to the community.
Oh yeah, yeah. And
I don't see Archer doing that.
Oh no, definitely not. And like, it doesn't hurt to do spreadsheets. Like Jerry's GRC analyst class, where he just took 800-171 and just added a column and just went through it. It's like sometimes that just gets the job done. But when you really start seeing like over time and getting kind of that like trend analysis, that's when it's like, okay, we need something to show like findings over time, repeat findings. That way you're not circling back through multiple documents, spreadsheets. And when you're trying to present to your auditors, that's when the heat, you really feel it, because you may have a tight turnaround time and it's like, it was somewhere in SharePoint. I don't know. So.
And then, yeah, Memoraletti. I had 40 different tabs for internal based, external, and paperback in 2007, 17-ish. Yeah. And we'll do more videos on CISO Assistant itself. So we have access to the tool and so forth, and it's really, really useful. One of the big reasons why I like it so much is because typically that software does cost a pretty penny. And especially for the small to medium businesses that don't have the ability to pay for these larger platforms, that gives them something. So that way they're not just working out of Excel, hoping for the best. Yeah. And it works amazing with ISO.
Yeah. Yeah. I uploaded that the first chance I got. I can see where the creator was like, I'm going to avoid any kind of legality with it and just put the list of control names and titles only, but totally understand that. It'd be great to kind of open source or come up with new content that we can kind of drop in there that's not going to violate ISO guidelines or copyright. So
see,
but hoping to experiment with that for I've seen some of the chat where they had difficulty in it. I did it on a like pretty stock like Ubuntu instance, and I had trouble with Docker Compose quite a bit on there. So if I was having trouble in that, I can't imagine if you were trying to do it in like WSL or some other kind of Windows type way to run Docker or something like that. Because be interesting to dive in.
Yeah, I know that people were having issues like on Windows 10, but you could also set it up in the cloud, and they also have like a 45-day trial for the Pro Edition at least. But even like the Pro Edition, I was kind of surprised. Like, I'm not trying to like plug them or anything like that. They're not a sponsor or anything. But like even it's like $43 a month per editor. That's not bad from a business standpoint compared to other tools that are out there. So, and they handle the whole platform for you.
Yeah, $40 a month is pretty non-existent, I think.
So. Yeah, when you're looking at the GRC software that's out there. Yeah. So yeah, that was one of the other things that surprised me. Let's see. And then Larry's question. So there was this one here. Okay, so yeah, Flakinator posted about the CISO assistant in Discord. I can go back through and search for that. I'm not sure if it was in the resources section or not, but I do remember he did get that set up like on Raspberry Pi, and he mentioned that earlier too.
I see a couple of questions coming in. Thank you so much, Rhonda. I appreciate it. I think you've probably caught it maybe a couple of times in the Public Speaking Masters group. Space Tacos, tips for report writing. Let's see. the way I go about reports, even though like we may have a GRC solution there, I still write it out in like a Word document or a Google document. That way I have it just kind of all laid out. Depending on your audit plan, there's a couple of ways you can structure it. Like you need to follow your plan, of course, but the way I do it is typically like, okay, here's the outline of the process I followed. Here are the findings based on that process. And then it's just kind of like a running list of exceptions. And we're talking about like sample-based audits. So say like an access review. It's like, okay, I looked at these user lists for whatever applications. And then it's almost like line by line. I like bullets quite a bit. It's just like this person was found here, 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 here. And like that's the way I did it when I was auditing banks as well. Because we would take like a sample set of their main applications, how many users are in there, what groups or roles they had. So I might be a little too basic on that, where it's just like, okay, it's in plain text as possible. But I can dig a little bit deeper on some of the report writing options out there. But I'd say simple is best. That way you have that trace back to, okay, I took the sample of whatever this is, got to this report. These are the findings. You can clearly see, hey, it's noted here. It's noted in the document. There's no question about how you got to that conclusion. I think that's probably the best report writing advice to have, is to make sure it's like almost like a blue book exam. You know exactly how you got there, and you can always reverse back to it, even if you don't look at that document months later.
One of the big things that helps me out is I just connected the Simply Cyber calendar to my primary like personal calendar. And you could also see right down here. So it's the last Tuesday of every month, I believe.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So the last Tuesday of every month, they do the public speaking in the Simply Cyber Discord. And so they have the link here and everything. And it gives you the opportunity. Not only is it a safe space for presenting, especially new, and just getting better at it. I've joined a few of them actually. And I mean, like, that's one of the things I need to kind of push myself to do is put together a couple different slide decks myself, actually. And that's a great space to do it. One of the things I do like about that actually is the fact that it's not actually recorded. I think that makes people way more comfortable.
Right. And we've talked a little bit about that. Our next session, we have, I believe, maybe a couple of talks scheduled, but other than that, it might be a year retrospective. Because we're coming up on, like, I know during December time, people are a lot busier with the holidays, that we might not have a December session. So it's more of a time to kind of reflect, like, what went well. It was brought up to record. We had James McQuiggan on, and he was like, oh, we should have recorded part of it. And I was like, I really want to make sure we have, like, proper consent to be recorded. And I also don't want to scare people from being able to speak. Like, knowing that we're streaming live was a little bit more pressure, but it's fun.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and you'll be talking in front of hundreds of people here in a few weeks. So, I'm hoping they post the videos online, because I didn't see a virtual option at least. I should probably slow it down a little bit, because a lot of cons already. I went to Wild West, got so excited, and then I went to the SC Con, and they had the B-sides right afterwards. So I was all hyped up and everything.
Yeah,
I'm trying to catch up on some of the questions here, but yeah, go ahead.
Oh, that was a gauntlet of conferences there, because even attending Simply CyberCon remotely, I had like 2 tabs open, and the time between tracks, I was like, man, if you were in person, you're like running to the next room. So.
Oh yeah, and one of the biggest downsides is like some of them, like James McQuiggan's and Jack Scott's were at the same time.
Yeah.
And so then I'm torn in between.
That was a rough decision.
Yeah. Talk about stress. I do see this one here too. So from AB Showtime, if you want to come up, AB, you did close us out last week on the stream. If I may ask, is AI becoming helping to streamline any aspects of the ISO 27001, auditor's work, or any other GRC work for that matter?
Okay. I do want to establish that first is it's dependent on your company. A lot of companies, like from an acceptable use policy standard, say like, hey, we don't want our company information on AI or trained against AI. If you do allow it, I have had some like easier, and it's almost like a computer assisted auditing. Like if I'm looking through a really rough spreadsheet of looking like, okay, did everyone who was offboarded, are they still in this application list? Doing that has sped up my work dramatically with like Excel documents, but you do need to be careful to make sure that you're above board with like your current AI governance policies and things like that. But yes, if you're still working in like basically the Office suite level things, AI is very helpful, even from like a Copilot standpoint or Gemini or whatever your company is currently like allowing for use. One thing on AI too is if your company does have like an AI presence, there is a AI standard 42001 that is the AI management system, and it actually overlays onto your existing ISMS. So it has its own kind of framework of like making sure that you have responsible use of AI, that you're training your models against certain standards. So like the governance side of that, there is a standard for that. So like either if you're using it internally or providing that as a service or having some AI component in your company, I definitely recommend looking into that. And that is kind of one of the ways that they, like I know that is one of the ways that they are staying with current areas and like getting something to kind of get the bounding boxes around new technologies.
One of the other things I want to throw out there too related to this is I am not a member of the OCEG, but I do appreciate their free webinars and their free resources. And they have this wonderful resource here I'll drop in chat. And so this was a white paper that was released last year. This might not be the free version of it, actually. I'd have to sign in to verify that, but they do have a free version of the paper. And it's like maybe a 25-page report about how AI is being used. So I don't know if this is actually the free one, but I will find that. I believe I have it in the Discord as well already.
Yeah, they have a lot of great resources on there, but that membership is kind of the reason why I'm like, I'll stay on the free side. That premium membership's a little steep. Nothing against them. Like, they got to keep the lights on.
Oh yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that I've had a free account for a long time now. I love the fact that they provide that as an option. Just having that higher renewal price every single year is pretty large. And like already being a member, like honestly, I'm afraid to become a member of more than 2 organizations because you have to reap those benefits to make it worth it.
Yeah, I think we were. I heard on a previous stream about like having ISACA and ISC squared, and it's like how much those recertification costs ramp up. So I have been very picky about who I like pursue next as far as like certifications go or things like that. Because, wow, yeah, you really got a budget for those after a while.
Companies pay.
And then also Rhonda
now too.
Yeah,
a long timer.
Yeah, that's a great perk. The places I've worked, they'll help you take like test and sit for the test, but then you're responsible for maintaining it. So yeah, it just that's an
a lot of people are in their negotiations and stuff, so they ask that as a perk because that's really right off of them. So I hear a lot of guys asking for that.
Oh yeah,
that was a perk. I never got it, so I was like, well, maybe I need to do it. I know about 10 guys done it and got it. So
yeah, doesn't hurt to ask. Yeah.
Well, and what I've been told recently is like, especially when you go into a new role, get that in like the negotiation for your pay, like an X amount for training and so forth. So, and then it looks like there's going to be a demand for you to start your own podcast here in a minute too.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Kimberly. I actually dusted off the old Blue Yeti, and I didn't have super high hopes for audio quality, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm going to have to steal Ozier's soundboard, but this is when we would say, coming in like a wrecking ball.
Thank you. Funny that like someone mentioned that I need to have a wrap off with Jerry about ISO versus NIST, but I was like, I don't know if we could do like a Kendrick Drake like beef wrap off. I don't know how well that would go.
I'm in there. I'm gonna be J.
Jerry
Cole
will stop me.
because I'm in this guy.
So,
Yeah, this guy. So,
yeah.
but Blackinator said is I used to do a lot of RFPs, risk assessment, supply chain. I see a lot of American companies now pushing it. It really upsets me, but I think it's getting up there. Disappointed in the United States of America, but I do see that more though.
Yeah, I know NIST definitely for like government contracts. It's like, yeah, go NIST. But for like commercial, it depends on kind of like your vertical or like your industry. But yeah, if you're on the government side, there's no reason to not go NIST. Or if you're on like the financial institution side, like my previous experience, the FFIEC guidance is all based on NIST controls. So it's like, that's the way to go.
I used to do that in my prior job because we were bidding on federal contracts. So I need to do a video on that because most of it. So
yeah, and like bank examinations or NCUA examinations, it's like, okay, that is your governance requirement or your compliance requirement is passing a examination. So it's like, go ahead and do that. But if you don't have like a binding requirement like that, ISO just kind of like puts those bounds for you.
Yeah. For me though, I'm a stick like from a hardening standpoint at the top with NIST, that's the top of the pyramid, but most people complain this environment, especially if you're small size. It's the last. Cybersecurity is not easy. It's not for the little guys. So I think we need to go big. But that's my 2 cents. I'm a NIST bigot, so I just thought I'd go ahead back to you, Chris.
So I was gonna say, so Space Tacos is trying to get you to pick your audience here. So yeah, I don't know whether you want to say ISO, NIST, CIS, but you're gonna start your audience, here from this question here.
Okay. So when I was working as an IT auditor, I was like, okay, NIST is staying on top of things, and they're really like lifting all boats when they come out with new guidance. Now that I've switched to ISO as kind of my primary framework, it's like I still got to vouch for it and fight for it, especially when you have posts on Discord from like two drink Jerry dogging on it. I've got to stand up for it, but
somebody's got
can't go wrong. You can't go wrong. I still have a I Heart NIST sticker that I bought from Jerry's shop, so it's like I still wear that proudly, but then I still work in ISO 27001 every day. So I know that was the very like diplomatic answer. They're all great, but
well, and like
this for life. I'm in a gang. This for life. Go ahead. I'll look at it.
Well, and I like the key insights that you dropped earlier, because you had mentioned on the fact that like a lot of these companies, they may run NIST as well. Like it's flexible, so you may only want it for access control, like your example earlier. But I like the fact that you mentioned that maybe they'll go off and get the ISO accreditation or whatever you want to call it. But the reason they would do that is just to expedite processes later on, because like NIST is all voluntary. So yeah, there's whereas ISO is a little bit different on that aspect. So that's where like I was comparing it like with SOC a little bit, because then like if you have your SOC 2, then you can too many people, I would say, just take that and run with it. Like, oh yeah, we'll just mark everything off the list now. Hopefully that's not the case, but it still meets a lot of those different check marks because you've already been assessed.
Yeah. And that's the big thing that I like. That's the hill that I die on with ISO, is being certified and having that, because people can say, oh, we follow best practices on XYZ. But then the auditor's like, okay, pull up that documentation. Or what about this example? And then you're like fumbling, like maybe we don't really follow what we say we follow. And ISO really just kind of like holds you to the fire with that a little bit.
Yeah, and then also on our resources page here, so we recently redid this a little bit, but on our resources page, we have our Trello boards, including this one for the CIS. And personally, I'm a fan of the CIS. That's a personal favorite of mine. I should figure out how to. I know ISO is a little funny with it, but it's kind of like with what CISO Assistant has. We could probably put something together to also break down some of the control groups there too.
Yeah, or the secure controls framework can map between CIS, NIST, and ISO. So at least you'll have like a ballpark of that. I will say ISO 27001's 2022 version went from like 13 control domains to 4. Yes. Yeah. 4. So it's a little like they condensed so much. And I was like, I missed the, like, this is the business continuity section. This is the secure development section. So they really like piled those in to make it easier. It's like people controls, technology controls, organizational controls. And then I think there's one more. I can't quite remember off the top of my head. I have the book right by me, but I refuse to go get it.
Yeah, I've heard really good things about James' talk. So I think the one that he did at Wild West was about like deepfake technology or something along those lines. I think that was one of his big ones. I talked to him at length about that at Simply CyberCon, the pre-con, I should say. I really do need to go watch that. Fortify 365 based on the Tenable CIS MS 365 framework. Yeah. I mean, one of the big reasons why I like CIS so much is just because I feel it's way easier to get into if you're starting from ground zero. Like at Wild West, I was talking to somebody and like they were working on CIS and then they were going to move over to CSF, and like we've discussed that before in like the study hall too. It just makes the process a little bit easier starting out rather than just throwing the whole book, starting with the bigger stuff. And CIS has a lot of different benefits with it, not only their policies and so forth, but the support from the community. Let's see. Oh, yep, we have. Oh, and then AB, you're in here. So both Space Tacos, AB, Rachel jumped in here. If you guys want to throw anything else in, introduce yourself. Welcome to the party, pal.
I want to make a clarification, please.
Oh, snap.
Okay. No, it's just I was not trying to get you to choose your audience, Chris.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to know which framework you like the best. That is all. That is all.
Okay. Thank you. And like, I mean, yeah. It's like I would talk all day long about NIST 3 years ago, and now it's all about ISO. So it's kind of like you kind of have your seasons with different frameworks. So,
any thoughts about CMMC?
That one I am not as informed enough to really speak on. So, but I heard that was like the hot topic, and then they finally got to a like finalized version of it, like within the last year or so, I believe.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, the CMMC thing, that's something that I really dug really deep into, and then I've been trying to play catch up with that. So just by mentioning that, I wanted to drop this link too. Now, I am going to warn you, especially in that CUI space, it could get a little spicy, and so I would not mark this as a safe for work link per se. They're kind of a little fluid with their language on the website. However, they have amazing resources for CMMC and great insight for the most up-to-date information.
I recommend it. Put your big boy pants on. They do get spicy over there. Jabs.
Oh yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, and I'll drop the link to it as well for their Discord. So the CUI Discord, let me find it here. They started out like I remember joining and it was like pretty much just CMMC, but now they're talking about everything. The 53, 171, all of the NIST documents, anything to do with government and government work in the GRC realm. Let's see.
How about the fittest over there, man? Maybe something. Let's go.
Well, what do you expect when you got Uncle Sam flipping people off on the front page? I mean,
and a lot of those people I can just tell by the tone. I used to work with a lot of Navy. Let's go.
Wow.
Yeah, and so
Roll
like
your
that link
sleeves
that I
up.
dropped there, like, yeah, I would definitely say it's a little spicy, but I think that's really just a space for the DoD realm. But amazing resources. They have a whole kit that you could download. It's like a complete starter kit, and it's really, really amazing. I think it's a great resource.
Yeah, but we got a lot of consultants over there trying to out consult each other. I get that feeling. I am the top dog of consultants. No, you is like
Why pay for Netflix when you could just hop in Discord?
hey, there you go, man. I mean, they which I like, man. You know, if you say it, you better have your documentation. You know, I got NIST 800 cases out. Let's go.
Oh yeah, and so AB, you can bring up your question here in a second, but I was going to shout out. So Kimberly was mentioning, congratulating, like, how could you pronounce your last name again for me? I'm horrible at names in the first place.
Hidalgo is fine. It typically has a E, Hidalgo, but Hidalgo is perfectly fine. So
Hidalgo. Okay, so Chris Hidalgo. About trying to stay in that neutral realm when it came to that. And I wasn't trying to throw you under the bus too much, Space Talkers. I just love when the topic comes up because some people take that a little too serious, I should say.
Just a bit.
And then AB, you're up here. What was your question there? Let's see.
And Kimberly, diplomacy is definitely one of those soft skills. It's okay to say I'm not as well informed to speak on that, and it's a good out sometimes until you can step aside and read up as much as you can on it, and then come back to it later. So,
no, I have a testimony for Chris Hidalgo. I mean,
okay.
when Chris, I would never forget this. I mean, that was my first time speaking at a cybersecurity conference. And right after my talk was over, Chris Hidalgo, I received a Discord DM. What a warm message that he sent. And I've been part of the public speaking group that you mentioned earlier. So I really appreciate that, Chris.
Thank you.
That's great.
Thank you, Abai. And
so
yeah, it was
definitely I and Kimberly and of course a couple of other people. We are just completely joking, like diplomacy and all of that.
Yeah. And I appreciate that too. I definitely wanted to jump in and support everyone who was in the group and making sure that I was catching their talks. I saw Mariana a little bit earlier tonight, but it's awesome to see y'all jump in. And we had like four or so people from our group that had talks at Simply CyberCon, so that was awesome to see. So yeah, always.
So my question here was, I was recently looking into cloud security, from a learning point of view for me, and I ran into some books on Amazon. So they, I don't know the name of the exact author. That book is right on the left, but similar to that regarding GRCs and these ISO standards frameworks. Are there any visual learning guides, visual learning tools that would be easier for someone like me who is like new to GRC?
Okay. For visuals, as far as like diagrams and just simple breakdowns of it, I found that the Cloud Security Alliance has been awesome for their infographics, and their CCSK exam, their guide for that is free. And every time I've like read about it, people are like, "Oh, just read the study guide. It is so well broken down. It has diagrams. It actually shows between NIST and ISO 27000. Okay, I don't want to get my standards wrong. The ISO standards for cloud security are 27017 and 27018. It'll refer to like NIST and ISO mixed together, but it's all like best practices. The Cloud Security Alliance is worth looking into for anything cloud security related, and they have so many diagrams, guides, things like that. It's all free. So,
okay.
huge visual aid. I was thinking about pursuing that certificate because I was like, I would like a certificate that doesn't expire. And like looking at it, it felt like reading a very well illustrated, textbook. So, oh yeah, napkin AI is awesome. I actually used a napkin example when I was talking about the stages of an ISO audit.
Yeah, so B-Dubs actually sent this over to me a few days ago, and I think they heard from it from James McQuiggan regarding Napkin AI, and I've been playing around with it for the last couple days, and so this would be like a huge resource that I would throw out there. So right now it's in beta, so you could register, you could use it for free, and it's really, really useful. There's a slight learning curve to get it kind of fine-tuned, I would say, but it's really unique because you could just copy and paste over text, and then you select an area, and then you can have it generate a visualization of that text. This is a great resource for that, especially if, like something that I would see using this is when you're going through the NIST docs. You could copy a paragraph, throw it in there, and then it'll kind of, put it into a graph or a visualization, and there's many options. I was talking to somebody else too in regards to like trying to gamify it to an extent. Everybody's a little bit different. Like, it does make it kind of difficult though, because it's all in text. It's all NIST documents, ISO docs, and so forth. I would find it very difficult, at least at this point in time, to like, you're still going to have to read some of it, but utilizing tools like Napkin would be really, really good. And something else that I recently started doing is, so like a couple of weeks ago, we need to line up another stream, because a couple of weeks ago I demoed like doing a interview with the Gemini conversation using the conversational speech where you can talk like in real time with AI. And that's one of the biggest things that I use is if I have a question, I could just, say the command for Google, and then it'll talk to me, in real time, which is a little bit better than reading. So like an example of that is like one of the books I was reading. I forget exactly what topic it was, but it had to do with like company culture or something, and I wasn't too familiar with it. So then I just called upon Gemini to have a conversation with me to have a little bit deeper understanding and explain it to me differently.
That's awesome. I never thought to use Napkin for a study aid too. And I had thought about that same thing too, about like having a more visual way of kind of like synthesizing your notes or things like that. And I dug into sketchnoting. That is a whole hobby in itself. So if you ever wanted to dive into that, there's a lot of books and like a whole community based on sketchnoting and like conveying like talks, books, and things to their main ideas. But I will say that is a deep dive, and you have to kind of fight through your own uncertainty with drawing, because a lot of them came from a graphic design background, and they're like, it's okay to make ugly drawings because the whole concept is to learn and interpret the information. So, but yeah, that was a deep dive for me. But Napkin seems to be like, if you wanted to get AI in it and like get instant feedback without feeling like, oh, I have to get better at drawing to get good at this and have a whole nother hobby. That's a great example with Napkin. So
yeah, well, exactly. And it really makes it a lot quicker, because I mean, that's what I have done in the past is I've used like Obsidians, or like there's another one, like I think it's like, I just talked about it the other day, but there's like a free online like diagram tool too. And sometimes it just makes it a little bit easier, especially when you're looking at like workflows and so forth.
Yeah, like draw.io is a pretty popular one. It's like free Lucid chart in your browser. So yeah, thank you for the comment earlier, Evan. Evan's a good friend of mine. We met through Neil's like Discord channel, but we actually live in the same town. So awesome to see you, Evan. Flakinator, I'm new to 3D printing. Luke Canfield actually sent me his old Ender 3, and we've been talking about that, and he's been kind of coaching me on how to set it up and everything, but still new to it. It's very interesting to me. But I'm trying not to, like, it was right before this talk, and I was like, I can't fixate on 3D printing until I get get through this presentation. So
Yeah, I played with it a little bit, but that's another huge skill too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I've talked to a couple of people who are like really serious about it, and that's like their whole hobby, and they've invested a lot of time into it. I think just like that beginner stage is the hard part, like when you're just trying to figure out how it works in the first place. But yeah, I got to give them some kudos because I have one of them. I showed it before. So I showed this before, and so this was the one and only actual useful thing I was able to get printed out. This took me like, I don't know, 16 hours of trial and error for this little tiny case. But it is a perfect fit.
Oh yeah, it's crazy the precision, and it's like I haven't even gotten to a benchy yet. Like I just tried to level the bed, and it's like I need to like put this in the back of my mind and take care of what I need to do this week. So, but yeah, looking forward to new stuff, and that looks awesome, Chris. To have like a full case ready to go.
Oh yeah, that's where the whole fascination with 3D printing comes in. I just wish I had more time to actually get better at it. But I think a lot of people say that it can be very time consuming.
I think once I get settled into my house, I'm going to get a QIDI printer, QIDI, and it prints all the filaments, like specialized nylons with carbon fiber. And I think I'm going to start printing pieces for my truck that I just got. They have a system where you can make like clip-ins, but instead of buying the manufacturer brands, I think I'm going to try to customize my own.
Yeah, that's awesome. Especially like just the idea of printing things that could last, like car parts. That's nuts to me still.
Yeah, because now isn't there like the ability for like aluminum and carbon fiber and all kinds of different stuff now?
They've honestly always had it, but a lot of the metal 3D printing is stuck in very large printers, industrial level printers, and even aviation. That was one of the biggest things. They started making turbine engine components. GE has a really big program that instead of casting, they're 3D printing titanium and other metal components. Very interesting.
Yeah. And like you can achieve stuff that CNCs could never get to, like just being able to build things within things that are perfectly fit. It's just, yeah, it's cool. Whole rabbit trail going down that route. But
yeah, and that's the whole fascination with 3D printing. So it's just like Fleckener mentioned, is like making some, like miscellaneous parts for custom furniture and so forth. I also knew somebody who they had some type of sports car that didn't even have cup holders in it, and so they had to 3D print cup holders that they screwed into their dash.
Yeah,
I mean, it worked, and it actually looked legit. Like they made a perfect match for it.
My wife has advised me like, don't go nuts, but I saw the Prusacaster, which is an electric guitar made using just like general PLA, and it's able to withstand the tension of the strings. So I was like, I really want to make that project, but I don't need another electric guitar floating around the house. So
yeah, and also Fleckenator offered to drop a list of links around 3D printing.
Very cool.
I'm sure that there's communities all over the place for it. So yeah.
Yeah,
I guess we need a Discord channel.
Yeah, in the chat I put top 10 GRC program. I think Space Top in there. In there's Arch, Hyperproof, OneTrust. There was one other in there. So those are kind of, I think all of them are pretty. So then the other thing is I dropped the NIST mapping to ISO mapping. Every now and then somebody asks me that, okay, we doing this, or we cover with ISO. So there's a mapping that I got off of NIST. I drop that in there a lot of times. I Yeah, I do. So I get that asked. We're
Yeah.
NIST. They saying they got ISO. Are we covered? And I think it's like they don't talk about prohibitive telecom as much because once again, ISO is commercial. We do more Fed work, so prohibitive telecom is more like a Fed stuff. But it's like most of that stuff is covered in there. So
yeah, that's awesome. So Rev 5 of 53 is pretty recent. I'm guessing. Okay.
2 years old, I think. Am I right? I've been. It's
For which
just
one?
R5.
Yeah, I think it's about. I think it was released like the end of 21.
Yeah, we talked
So
about it forever.
it's getting up there already.
Cool.
Yeah, but it out. Unlike CM, he's gonna give you a deck conversation.
Yeah, so revision 5 came out in September of 2020, and then I think it was like the end of 21 where they started converting a little bit, I guess. So it's been almost 5 years now. Well, so it's been 4 years, but
yeah, like I said, they gave you 2.
Yeah.
So it's been out hard. So yeah, that's the newest one. And like I said, every now and then with their ISO and we're NIST. So cool thing is NIST usually does a mapping.
Yeah. I had mentioned earlier about the CSF 1 having that mapping in the background, so that's good to know that the 853 still keeps that mapping.
Mm-hmm.
I may have to take a look at that too. If it came out in 2001 or 2022, it may not be currently up to date with the latest ISO. Like, so ISO 27001 had a 2022 revision, and the final cutover for everyone, like if you're certified against the old standard, the 2013 version, you have to cut over to the 2022 at the end of next year. So October 2025 is the absolute deadline to get to 2022, which means sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. I'll cut you. Go ahead.
Which means like documentation may be mismatched, or like mappings might be mismatched if it came out like pre-2022. But
I ain't gonna say cheated, but we just said we're doing a forward and we put everything in a poem and said we're gonna be in a year. So the cool thing is NIST showed you what we'll do for so we did a bunch of schedules and get a number critical.
Yeah.
The auditor.
Well, and then also I want to bring this is a great mention too, back to the visual or to the study portion. So Rhonda mentioned Notebook LM. I've used that before. I'm going to drop the link to it too. And so Google has a really cool resource where it's completely free right now, at least because it's still in beta, but it allows you to upload documents. You could do like YouTube videos and things like that too. One of the coolest features with it is now they've included to where like you could upload, let's say like the NIST 2.0 documentation, and then you could have it make a podcast between 2 AI bots in a audio format. It's actually really neat, and it's free.
Relationships, but they did it for relationship stuff, and it was.
I need to line up a stream for like to go more in depth on like the conversational for interviewing. Like you said, that was pretty intense off the bat. And then like that Notebook LM, that's a really good resource.
Yeah.
Can we go in the AI, make it like go
the Reddit Discord version.
Yeah. Make it tough. Have some spicy words in there.
I had just found about Notebook LM from my nephew. He just started his first year of college, and it made me feel so old a little bit. But I was like, man, if I had that in undergrad, that would have been a game changer, because I would have just been listening to audio versions of notes and things like that walking to class. But it's pretty wild how far it's come.
It's true. I was doing it, like isn't asking us questions like that's really I got my CIS studying for.
Yeah, and like what I started with is like we just took like a job description. So let's say I'm applying to this position. I took the job description, copied and pasted it into my prompt, and then I also took like the history about the company, which I think is what most people miss out. I think a lot of people have been utilizing AI to assist with that kind of stuff for a while now, but the people that I've talked to, they haven't thought about, oh, well, I need to know what the business industry is and so forth, way more beyond than just the description. And a lot of the people I've talked to who have interviewed recently, like the actual interview itself is only I don't know, 10% of what's actually on the job description. So I think that was a really good context, and I would definitely say it was difficult. Definitely put me on the spot, but I think it's a great exercise. And what we should probably do is like line up a couple different people who are on the job hunt, and we could pick out some different jobs you've applied to, and we could do it as like a community thing, a group activity.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I think as far as culture fit, it's like, oh, they actually genuinely care about what we do. And yeah, I would have never thought to use that as like a way to memorize that, because it's like, okay, sometimes works better if you're an audio learner, and I'm definitely that. So, and I like other study methods, it's like I've got to hear it sometimes. So
yeah, that's my biggest thing is PBO keeps going backstage.
Losing power. It's not me. My power keeps flickering.
Oh,
Power goes out. Everybody else acts like nothing happened. So I don't know what's going on with my power or my router.
and yeah, I'm right there with you too. So like, I don't mind going through and reading, but especially being able to have that conversation is really useful. It's one of the benefits with like the community is like PBO here has spent hundreds of hours on helping me on different things, along with numerous other community members too. And with like Gemini, like I was very excited to see that the feature rolled out, but then I tested it with like OpenAI's version and Gemini's, and I still think Gemini wins. I was getting a lot of different errors with ChatGPT's version. I think OpenAI, ChatGPT at least, works very, very well for that analytical processing, file structures, and things like that. But the conversational, I've had almost no issues with Gemini. The biggest issue is the screen turning off, and then that was one of the first issues. Is that it would disable it. It's a great learning tool.
very cool.
The other thing in there, I think put in there, and I think he brought up the ISO certification as kind of a card. You know, I'm a NIST guy, so they have FedRAMP. That's but certified, you kind of know what the cost of small ISO, APL, which is the big guys. They charge $1 an hour.
Yeah,
So it's on the NIST side. Certified software is expensive.
Yeah, I don't have insight into how much it is to engage like long term with an ISO 27001 auditing firm, because it's like typically you would engage 3 years minimum, just like a full certification cycle. Yeah, I'm not sure about the flat rate cost. As far as the get out of jail free card, I do kind of want to hear where they're coming from on that. I could see it cutting down on like client requests, like security, like, hey, we need to evaluate your security posture. And it's like, well, here's our certificate and here's like our attestation for it. But I'm not sure if it would be a get out of jail free card for like breaches, for one thing. Or things like I'm curious on that a little bit more.
And I think I know where she's coming from my perspective on the NIST side is, even if, and I would say we passed, at least that lets us, we got the policies and the procedure. Now we could have did some stupid, right? But at least from a legal standpoint, we could say we did due care and negligent, right, from that part, because passing out worst case we if we consider negligent, but so that's from our side.
Yeah, that's a tough call on like where that, because on the federal space I could see that leaning on the auditing firm, but a lot of auditing firms it's like, hey, we had these specific parameters when we evaluated you, and unless it was like gross negligence, I don't know if we could like pin that on our audit firm. But then, you know, like if they are a federal like entity in themselves, or, you know, like they have something to answer to if someone does fail, I guess that consequence there. But coming from the commercial space, I'm like, I think we're still on the chopping block if something was a massive failure. But
we're on a
I lost my thought. Go ahead. Sorry. No, you're good.
a lot of times slightly
I think we lost him.
Yeah, I'll pull him back up here. Let's see.
I'm gonna have to reboot
Come on,
or
PBO,
something.
you gotta
you're
patch
good.
it.
Yeah, I'm gonna need to patch. But long story short, I think a lot of state general attorneys from the state side are putting commercial things to the ringer. Because if you got anything in Cali, CCPA, New York, Indiana, if you got more in Indiana, put you ringer. So I think states are starting to push the side. So.
Yeah. I, as far as like getting the benefits of an ISO 27001 certification, not sure if I would say that it's like a get out of jail free card, but like there are some perks, monetarily perks. Like I've heard that like cyber insurance might offer discounts depending if you are certified.
It will.
So things like that. There are some other benefits that a company would also pursue that, like from a competitive advantage to differentiate from.
Yep.
But also you're saving money if things do go sideways, and it's like, well, we've, you know, like our insurance policy gave us, you know, a cut because we had this certification when we onboarded with them. But yeah, I don't think it gets you out of the woods as far as like answering or incident notification, things like that.
That's kind of what she's in words in her mouth. Okay. And I think you're correct on I think the assignment is going to be high. Cases is going to be high.
Right. Yeah.
Because a company, when you got to have $5 million cyber insurance. Because when I worked for the stock exchange, they wanted you to have $5 million worth.
Yeah.
With us, and I think now that's become quite high if you're in business. And they did a big project. They the name the company was a beneficiary. I was like, wow. So you do some unique things on
that's wild. Those numbers, just I don't know. I have a hard time fathoming those numbers from like a damages perspective, because I'm like, I don't know how you come to that amount. So
I don't know if you Google it. If you're a big company, mention it. If you get a breach and you.
Oh, there he goes again.
Sorry, PBO.
Come on, PBO. You gotta patch it. He'll probably be. Oh, there he is. He's back again already.
I
have a great evening.
I have to apologize to the community. Some YouTube don't like me. I have to the GRC, but
it's an insider.
That was one of the. That was one of the interesting things I heard that I didn't think about this before, but I think it was casually Joseph mentioned to me on the fact that like you could send certain things to people inside of China or otherwise, and then it sets off the red flags that are on their block list, their not allowed list for their ISPs, and it'll disconnect their internet connection. I've never thought about that before, but it makes perfect sense.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's what's happening. Are you really over there in North Korea or something, PBO?
And I'm trying.
Over here talking DoD.
Yeah. From a general breach for a big company, talking about Fortune 1000 or mandate, they are just to say 25,000.
Wow. Yeah.
If you get you don't want to be in line. If you pay return list, there, they all four companies are gonna try to live. So $5,000 just
to get priority. Yeah,
yeah.
that's wild.
Federal, but once again, like I said, over our Homeland Security, those type of things, as a state, to be able to handle if your whole state gets hacked. So we'll do a video.
I'll add it to your. I will add it to your backlog
for ISO.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of the on the insurance side, but then I think a lot of that is confidential, so that might be hard to hunt down.
I bet you one of the big they give you a top part because I think that got certified VMs.
Yeah, and then I just pulled you up here, Chef. You might have to click the settings icon in the bottom middle section in order to work with your inputs or otherwise. Otherwise, you can also use the private chat in the bottom left corner on this end. But yeah, everybody else is welcome to come up. We are actually already coming up to our 2-hour mark here shortly. So we'll still be up for a little while, but we'll be ending it here in a little bit. One of the other things I wanted to mention too is PBO is now doing 3 live streams a week.
No, PBO doing 2. Doing 1 committed that on basis.
Hey.
But go ahead.
You got the 853 family discussions on Tuesday night, and then Wednesday nights you're doing the AWS, and then now Fridays you're talking third-party risk management.
Yeah, but we haven't made that an ongoing one yet on a Friday. We got to see. PBO is almost 60, man. He got to pace himself, man. And I'm not a
TPRM's a tough topic to tackle because I think Neil Bridges said this a while back in cyber insecurity. He was like, yeah, good luck trying to get the Amazons of the world to fill out your questionnaire. They're going to tell you to pound sand. And
no, they don't.
Yeah.
No, they don't.
But you got the federal pool. Yeah.
No. It was you had to spend money fill out your because for them it made sense because certifications they FedRAMP approved, HIPAA trust, anything extra. Which they just said got to get our legal and our security at $1.
Yeah.
And so 3 or 4.
And to be honest with you, when the conversations were coming up about that a while back on a lot of these vendors requiring the minimums and so forth, I think it's been ongoing for a long time. But I mean, honestly, it does kind of make sense. I mean, it does directly cost them. That costs money.
Yeah.
And the cool thing for them, and we've done it on this video. Each one of their services, you can go look up the certification, 3PO, ISO, SOC 2, Type 2. They tell you if you're using an S3 bucket and you got to configure this, all the things we already have it certified for. So.
All right, let's see.
But yeah, and they almost spicy. So I was like, but my pay grade. So it's interesting.
It's way above that level that y'all were talking about last week with that crazy $35,000 job. Things like that. You're like, no, it's that level. It's that level. It's up there.
Yeah, so it's up. They spent $25,000. I was like, ooh. I was like, and for them, that's small. That's pocket change for Amazon, man. They got that in their size. So, $25,000 is a rounding error.
Yeah, and exactly, Rhonda, by the way. PBO is struggle streaming again. At least he is familiar.
I am struggle streaming. What did Rhonda say?
So, first of all, Fleckinator, so you're streaming 5 days a week is what we thought. And then Rhonda was talking about how you're struggle streaming again.
I am. I'm really struggling. I on before I do my lunchtime. Okay, I might
And then
tonight or something. Go ahead.
oh yeah, and then I'm going to drop these links again. So did you want to have any closing remarks or anything else to add there, Chris?
I mean, that's it for me. I really appreciate this opportunity to get to present my talk on Study GRC, but I'm looking forward to staying engaged with the community, and I'm hoping to see where like that resource guide goes into further talks, further study sessions. Very excited. I was definitely a little bit of a chat lurker, so like long-time listener, first-time caller type situation, but I'm glad that I could jump in and kind of share what I've been working on the last few months with y'all.
Well, I'm really glad that
you got your own YouTube channel yet?
I don't.
Come on.
Yeah.
That's on the list.
Oh, man.
So
podcast incoming.
I followed Roberto Blake. Took seriously. Took me a while ago. First 50 videos is gonna start.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start. Obviously, you got. I wouldn't. You don't have to over edit it. I would just talk and whatever come out, just let it sit.
Yeah.
Don't over edit.
Thank you, PBO. Because like Jerry's talk, and then like there's a few other people on the platform like Pirate Software. I was like, you know what? He's a guy with a camera, and he just is able to, speak on the fly. And I was like, yeah, I think I got bogged down on like long form content, script writing level things.
Oh, don't
so.
Yeah, you're overthinking it. And two is I'm gonna put Chris in a mix. If your first couple shows support you, we can be in the chat. Whatever you need from us, just ping.
Yeah.
We'll come and support Chris is, and we can get
Very cool.
GRC Mafia.
Yeah. Thank you.
So yeah, so I'm a for me. But yeah, we'll support if you just show up for your first couple. We'll come up to support you. Not like you're gonna blank out or something, but
right.
But if you want us to pop up, likely do that for us. Just like you can do.
Yeah.
What we can do.
Awesome.
Well, and especially with all the different people that I've met at the cons recently, like that's one of the big overarching things that I've noticed is so like you're going off and doing talks now. You put together this whole resource. You're doing what you're passionate about and what you're familiar with and everything else. We have like B-Dubs over here who just recently started a blog, which I dropped in chat a minute ago too, and giving insight on that. PBO's got almost 800 videos on YouTube with an average of 2 to 3 hours each. Everybody's doing their own thing. It's really awesome. That's where the whole community aspect comes in.
My pre-record is about
cool.
I think the only reason your stream the other night was like 32 minutes in length was because of your internet connection.
It was just kind of like to it. So I was like, dude, I was surprised because usually I get 3 or 4 people and we talk an hour. So I was really surprised with 30. But it's all good. But once again, it's not a hard thing. Wealth of knowledge in ISO. ISO's like a bunch of families. I just pick a few and just
yeah.
B-Dubs, did you want to also mention your blog before we sign off? Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Oh, I just said that was awesome and definitely inspiring. I appreciate that.
Let's see, and then I was going to go ahead and share this too. So we still technically have 10 more minutes on here. If any of you guys need to drop off, you're more than welcome to. I definitely get it. So it's almost 9 o'clock Eastern time now.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
Dropping. I got to figure out why.
Yeah, come on, PBO. You've never had that happen before?
It's like I'm recycling. So I looked at my. It's not weird. I paid now. What's going on?
All right, so I wanted to pull this up too before we end. So I dropped the link, and I could drop it again, of course. I'll probably put like a version of this in the Discord too, just so that we have multiple different, ways for you to find it. But so this is what Chris put together here for the reference guide. There's a great index for it. You could definitely see that he's not only an auditor, but also ISO. I think they go above and beyond on their indexes. Let's see. One of the biggest key things that I actually immediately jumped to was the reference list. So there's all kinds of different useful information in here. A lot of this is what he's discussed throughout his presentation at the beginning, which I'm also going to cut out and publish separately, like I did with the CISO assistant one. That's one of the different feedback items that I got, was cutting out that presentation and publishing it separately for everybody too, which I think was amazing. So I would definitely go through, if you're looking at ISO, this is a great resource, but then also all of these resources at the bottom here. So the reference list for, he mentioned the Adversa, IT governance, there's all kinds of different stuff in here. A bunch of different books that he recommends too, and especially in ISO. I mean, that's your specialty. Lead, what is it? Lead implementer?
There's a lead auditor, but then there's also a lead implementer. So yeah, yep. I took that exam, but yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of showcase some of the different stuff that was on this. So especially if you're on mobile, we'll definitely have this available. I'm going to throw this on the resources page, and we may go through this separately as well. And then just like he also mentioned, is that the whole purpose with this, and just like our other resources, is it's a community document. So anything that you guys have to add, any recommendations, anything like that, like we could build on top of this and expand it. Something that this could be turned into later on is we could separate it out into like the 001, 002, and so forth. You also mentioned like the 9001 as well, which I think is the risk management one, if I remember offhand. Oh, the quality management.
I thought that was 280.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm still getting those numbers somewhat mixed up, depending on where I land on.
I got it.
So.
Yeah, I got that.
Yeah.
Yeah, my that. But
yeah,
I got.
Oh yeah, most certainly. Yeah, and then also I see Albright jumped in. Welcome to the party, pal. I don't know how you were probably listening in the whole time, but definitely want to do a shout out there.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, if you want to go ahead and mention something there, PBO. I'm going to catch up on the messages real quick.
Yeah. Myself as I'm supply chain and threat modeling tomorrow. I was from the NIST perspective. Learn 12 p.m. I get a ton of questions, and Chris with third-party questions. I thought about doing a stream third-party assessment perspective from the vulnerability scan perspective. I'm sure ISO has their module for supply chain vendor assessment.
Yeah, they do.
Compliance is HIP or I trust. So I'm gonna do vendor assessment. 3 different points on RPs. We can see most private commercial companies from us go through procurement. Anything you buy, hopefully you send it through. People don't, but send it through your security. Then vulnerability. We find new software on our system. We block them, but sometimes some big VP wants their assessment because if the auditors come and prove and it's not in our vendor list, and at least we do a high level assessment, that'd be for us. I'll do that from a GRC perspective. Once again, supply chain and David, I got to figure out what's going on with.
I was just waiting for you to to kick yourself out again during your little talk there.
Tomorrow I'm rebooting the router and everything. I said it's my guess. I don't think it's me, but we'll see what's going on. Oh. Connecting well today. I don't know. So well, yeah, we have to figure it out because I probably got live. I've never had this technology. You never know.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Let me Google that for you. Yeah, if you guys
about
aren't
that.
familiar, yeah, there's a couple different websites out there for, let me Google that for you, which I find kind of funny.
Yeah,
Kind of,
that
I
is
would call
funny.
it passive aggressive to an extent, depending on context.
That's aggressive.
Yeah, if you guys do have anything else to add, definitely drop that in chat, or I'm going to go ahead and drop the link again. So we still do have a couple more minutes if you guys want to stick around. If B-Dubs is listening, did you want to talk about your blog a little bit?
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and pull it up on screen. Let's see. So one of the other key things, so like I went live randomly on Tuesday night, I believe. One of the things that I've kind of prevented doing is outside of our weekly meetings, I just don't want to, like ping everybody outside of our scheduled streams and so forth. However, several people have stated that like, oh, just send it. If you guys don't want to watch, you won't click on it. So expect a lot of early 2 a.m. notifications waking you up, thanks to PBO. But no, on a serious note, though, we do want to make more content for it. So one of the things that I talked about on Tuesday night was making like a short video for like our resources and so forth. But then also there's like articles that we can go through, just spare the moment. Like it's not something we have to necessarily record, and everything's going to be, we won't have to pre-record it, but it'll still be recorded and available on our YouTube channel as well. I just wanted to drop this particular resource because this is what B-Dubs has started working on. And I think it's a really great resource. So there's definitely people that are out there already talking about it, but like Get Smart with Goals, for an example, I don't think I have it handy, but the new volume 3 for like breaking into InfoSec from Black Hills talks about SMART goals, for an example. And the biggest benefit that I see with this blog that she has started is how straightforward it is. Every single one of these, I think it even says on the home page, 2-minute read, 5-minute read, 3-minute read. One of my pet peeves, to be honest, is a lot of these news articles, a lot of these blogs, it's like 45 minutes worth of audio, which is great. It's a lot of good information, but to be honest with you, like 90% of the time I'll go through and I'll just end up taking a summary of it. I'll go through and read out, every other paragraph, or just take keywords and read those sections, because ain't nobody got time for that. But you get a lot of information in a very, very quick read. So definitely go through and check this out, and we'll probably go through and do videos on these as well. I think I'm going to start reviewing some of PBO's older content too. I know he's got to update his CMMC video list.
Thank you. Yeah, I need to do the list. There was a 170 mouth for so I need 170.
Joked about it before, but honestly, I do believe that we need to come up with a public submitting process for PBO streams. So, because there's so many recommendations out there.
I know. I think let's check. But I was going to say, if he reviewed my course, that's kind of how my 5 goes.
Yeah, and also like Fleckenator mentions is loves when it says the approximate read time. Yeah, well, and like some of the different like blogs, articles that I follow too, like they include the audio with it, but it's like 45. It's a whole podcast, is what it really comes out to. It's really great information. Just there's so many different resources out there, and you really got to weed through some of the filler, I would say. Yeah, exactly, Kimberly. Yeah, ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah, shut up a little bit.
Yeah, a little choppy.
Everything, but on a stream, so I'm trying. So
come on, PBO, you got to get on top of it.
I think, man, I'm sick.
It probably is. It probably is. I mean, it is 33 degrees out. It's probably the weather. It's affecting the ions in the flux capacitor.
team. The same.
Right.
When the light in the fiber optic gets cold, it slows down a little bit.
Right.
No, it's all good though.
All right. So.
Lunch or check.
Oh yeah, and then also like we even have the short code for PBO now. So many resources over there. But yeah, we're just over that 2-hour mark now. So again, thank you very much, Chris, for presenting, sharing with us, especially the document that you're sharing. I love the fact that you're putting yourself out there doing these talks and so forth. I hope you're going to be for the SCCon next year.
I'm hoping so. Yeah, I need to plan ahead there, but yeah, that would be awesome to travel and get to meet everyone in person. So,
damn. And then yeah, definitely check out PBO's and then BDub's resources. I'm going to drop the Discord again too. And then, did you guys have anything else on exit?
20 tabs open, that might be helpful.
Oh gosh. Come on, PBO.
Need to reboot.
It's not as bad as like
But
I've seen people with hundreds of them, so it could be worse. Oh yeah, and this was another reason is there's quite a few people that I've met from the like Wild West, for an example, and then also like BDubs will be on site at the Austin one too. So
awesome. Yeah, great to we'll have to catch up, BDubs. Yeah, awesome to speak here. Looking forward to like where we take this next with the community. But thank y'all so much for giving me the opportunity to speak, and yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed it. So, catch y'all next time. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, thank you very much. And then just before we sign off here, so next week we do have Carlin Clayton for roadmap development. I didn't have this up ahead of time, but let me go ahead and pull this up real quick. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Okay, so that's how I do that. Perfect. Not struggle streaming at all on it. So roadmap development, corporate communication, and business presence. So Carlin Clayton, I could go ahead and drop her LinkedIn in the chat as well, but we'll have her up next week discussing that and doing a whole presentation. We're aiming, I believe, about a 45-minute time window for that. Most likely Q&A to follow. She does own and operate a coaching and consulting business. Just looking at some of the stuff that she's done, I'm very excited for it. And I definitely recommend for you to go ahead and reach out and connect with her on LinkedIn. And so that'll be at our meeting this next week on the 21st. And I look forward to seeing you guys there. Thank you all for hanging out and participating here. And I will see you all in the Discord outside of the stream here. And you guys have a good rest of your week. I'll see you guys next week on here.